So we were so focused on what he wasn't doing that we were not aware of what we were not doing. My husband and I had a conversation the other day. You know, as parents do, you're sitting on the couch, maybe the kids are playing, they're occupying themselves. You're like, whoo. And, you just talk about your kids sometimes. You just talk about life and things that are happening. And we were talking about how sometiming my son is 4, how our son, our son is 4. You you get all pregnant and you have him and you start saying, my son, our son. And he's been sometimey with like meals outside of breakfast. Breakfast, he's good. He's gobbling everything up. Lunch, sometimey. Dinner, sometimey. And we were just like, man, he just puts up such a fuss about eating his entire meal. And, sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he likes it, sometimes he doesn't. And, he's not sitting down and eating. And it was a point, it seemed like where he was doing that. And you're just like, we're frustrated with him, man. Like, why are you not eating your food, like eating your meal? This is a meal. You need to eat your meal first. And he's losing it because he wants to eat snacks. And we're like, all he wants to eat is snacks. And it was like, pause. And we look at each other. And you're like, but we're giving him the snacks. We're the ones that are giving him the snacks in between meals. Now, this is a nuance, okay? Now it's got layers to it because which is also our responsibility because sometimes he'll ask us to eat something or he's hungry for dinner or whatever, and we haven't even figured out what dinner is going to be. We have not planned. Our prep is not prepping. It's off. And that's lack of preparedness on our part. So yeah, we give him something to tide him over. That's what he used to say. Like give me a little something to tide me over. Something to tide him over, something for him to munch on in the interim while we're figuring out, because we know it's not going to be like a quick wait. And then even sometimes when we're prepping dinner, we're chopping up stuff or you know what I mean, like sauteing, whatever we're doing, he might get a little something because he's coming in the kitchen asking. I'm like, that's on us. And I'm like, we need to get comfortable on some wait. Like, kind of teaching him to wait, and he doesn't like it, but drink some water, have a banana. And a lot of times that it's a piece of fruit. Sometimes it's chips and hummus. Sometimes it's heavier. If it's like banana with almond butter, with cinnamon, with what is he like on that? Coconut flakes now. The almond butter makes it a heartier snack. Same thing if he eats chips and hummus, that's like, it's going to be more filling. So then when we put the curry chickpea and quinoa rice and broccoli in front of him, he's like, I'm good. But that's on us. And so we're like, oh, okay. Perhaps we are the source of our own frustration and we need to make some shifts. But while I'm using this moment as the example, what I really want to share about this is really how clarifying, I shouldn't find the right word, how clarifying it feels when you start to take responsibility for your actions, when you start to realize what you've contributed to an issue that is frustrating you. And that's in parenting, and that's in relationship, and that's in friendship, and that's at work. You know what I mean? Like, I think personal responsibility gets a bad rap. And this was just like, as I reflect on this conversation, I laugh to myself because I do that sometimes. I am reminded about the fact, or reminded of the fact that taking responsibility for your actions, having that sense of accountability it's not a condemnation. It doesn't say anything about our character or identity or who we are or who we aren't. We're not bad spouses or bad parents or, bad friends or whatever if we did something, made a mistake, contributed to an issue. I posit I I posit that in reality, when we take that kind of responsibility, what we're doing is we are proving how aware we are of ourselves, of who we are and what we do. It is proof of our own self-awareness. And in that, we now have the opportunity and the choice to be like, okay, this is something we can shift. This is something we can change to make that issue or that situation now better. When we're sitting outside of accountability, when we sit outside of responsibility, I feel like that is when it starts to feel even more frustrating because the thing doesn't shift and the thing doesn't end, and the problem or the issue is always outside of ourselves. Okay. And we do this clearly in parenting, with our kids. Like, why won't our kids adjust? And also, what are we doing to contribute to that? And in relationship, I've had to be like, oh, okay. So, you reacted that way because I was came off snippy because I was stressed. Okay, so if I hadn't come off snippy because I was stressed, then this would have looked differently. This would have gone differently. This would have looked different. It would have been, a whole different conversation post me being stressed and snippy. And so I have to take accountability or responsibility for me being stressed, me being snippy, me having, me contributing to that issue. Doesn't mean that the other person or other entity doesn't have responsibility in that. I don't know, with my son, like he's 4, so I can't. But in many situations, an adult to adult or adult to older kid situation doesn't mean that they also don't have responsibility, but it might be a both and thing, and often I feel like it is. And so this moment was a reminder to look at ourselves in situations, but also not to take it as a personal affront to who we are. I think that's our biggest mistake in dealing with accountability is we'll be like, oh, so this means not just that you're a bad parent, whatever, but this means that you are the kind of person that makes these kind of mistakes. When you start to go into I'm the kind of person who, it starts to stick. And I'm like, well, it could just be a mistake. It could just be a lesson that you had to learn at this point. It could just be something that I needed to figure out for this reason. It could be something that I didn't realize I was doing that somebody had to point out to me. Like it can be what it is, and it doesn't have to be more than that in terms of like defining my personality or defining who I am as a person, and remembering that humans make mistakes, remembering that we're going to falter, remember we're going to do things that um other people will not like or understand, or other people will call us out on, and sometimes you've got to take it. You might not like how it's delivered, but is the message true? Like you said, I didn't like your tone when you said it, but actually there's some truth to that. And as corny as it may sound for me, I have found that those moments of recognizing the mistakes that I make, mistakes that I continuously make that I don't realize I'm making, and once somebody calls it out or I realize it in some way, shape, or form, that has been a huge like jumping off point, catalyst, like accelerator. That's the word I got there eventually to my own growth and understanding of myself. And and I told myself, I cannot be adverse to learning things about myself that I might want to change and improve, that I might not like. Or if I did something, even if it was unintentional, I didn't mean to do it, that it still had an impact, right? My friend Vanessa and I, shout out Vanessa, when we do trainings together, she often talks about impact versus intention. And that's a real thing because you might have meant to do something. Maybe you didn't mean to punch me in the face when you were flinging your arm and your fist, but in actuality, you oh, hold on a second, y'all. Hold on. I had to actually get up and give my husband something, and I'm comfy. I'll just leave it. But yeah, so ultimately it's something for me that allows me to feel empowered. And I feel like using that word, I feel like it's a word that is used quite often. Um, but in this case, it feels very apropos that I feel empowered to make the shifts that are continuously going to allow me to become who I want to become, who I'm meant to become, who I feel I want to be in this world, and how I want to engage with the world around me. And so taking responsibility and taking accountability being aware of my mistakes, being open to hearing others, including my spouse, which I would say is the harder. I think, oh, of course, I would get something in my eye. This was just that kind of day. It's thundering outside. There it is. Stuff is getting in my eye, and yeah. But I am now in a position to make shifts and to improve and to be better, and that's important. Being a better, to me, being a better human being, and I can hone in on what's important to me. So that one moment on the couch talking to my husband, realizing that we were frustrated with our 4-year-old, but really we needed to bring a lot of that frustration over to us and start to be aware of the things that we were doing, albeit to make life easier for us and for him. I feel like it's mostly for us. Um, and also not let him go hungry when we really didn't know what we were going to make for dinner, what we were going to eat. So, being aware of that. And from that, just thinking about responsibility and how freeing it felt to be like, oh, now that we are honing in on that, now we can make these shifts and we're probably going to see a change because he's going to be hungry. You know what I mean? He's not, he didn't get, he didn't have something to tide him over. He's going to be hungry and he's going to eat this meal. Or he's going to choose to fast and it'll be a real choice because because I know you're hungry because you did not have a snack, you didn't have some fruit, whatever. You are hungry right now. So that gave us a chance to be able to make certain shifts to see different results. And that goes for most things in life. When we take accountability, we're like, oh, now we can do this. Now we can see what's on the other side of these, different results than we have seen in the past. And that's often a really good thing in our relationship with our kids, our relationship with our spouses, our relationship with our friends and our coworkers. So yeah, just remembering for myself, and a reminder talking it out with you, that we essentially do a disservice to ourselves when we think about accountability and responsibility as something that is condemning who we are, as opposed to something that is proof of how aware we are of who we are, and that gives us the power to shift and to change things. Power we didn't have before because we weren't aware, right? So I'll leave you with that. That's what I got today. Hope that was a word for somebody who needed it, or just a reminder for somebody who needed it. Thank you so much for coming here, watching, listening, spending a little time and hanging out with me. I appreciate you for that. And if you are feeling this, if something resonated with you, let me know down in the comments below. And I'm Imani Aisha. I make videos to remind and encourage us to stay connected, to yourself, to stay connected to your spouse, and to creating a life that feels good to you, because we only get the one. So if that's your vibe, please subscribe. Let's continue this conversation, and I'm going to see you in the next video.